College football didn't always have conferences, rankings, or even normal opponents. At one point, top programs were lining up against military units, high schools, town teams, and even clubs from other countries. These games actually happen, they're officially recorded, and they sound fake until you see the score. Once you hear who these teams played, the early history of college football gets really weird really fast, brother. Indiana's strangest opponent came from a medical school inside the same state. In 1904, Indiana played the Indiana Medics, a team made of medical students. At the turn of the century, medical schools often had their own athletic teams. They weren't casual intramural squads. Many of the players were older than the typical undergraduates and had already played football elsewhere. Indiana won the game 12-0. That score fits the era perfectly. Football was slower, possessions were limited, and points were hard to come by. A two-touchdown win suggested solid control of the game. Matchups like this happened because football was organized locally. If a team existed, had equipment, and could travel, it was a valid opponent. Texas A&M's unusual opponent was the Texas Deaf School, now known as the Texas School for the Deaf. In 1904, A&M played the school and won 49-0. The Texas Deaf School was a legitimate athletic program and regularly competed against prep schools and colleges. Communication in early football relied heavily on hand signals, which meant teams like this weren't at the disadvantage people might assume today. Crowd noise wasn't a factor yet, and plays weren't called verbally at the line. Games like this reflect how early college football schedules mixed colleges, institutions, and prep programs without much concern for classification. Ohio State's opponent wasn't a school at all, it was the 11th Infantry Regiment of the United States Army. Military regiments often fielded football teams during peacetime. Soldiers were physically conditioned, disciplined, and used to structured training, which translated well to football. But Ohio State won 46-4. The margin suggests Ohio State's offense had a significant edge, but the fact that the game happened at all says a lot about the era. There is no governing body preventing colleges from scheduling military units. If anything, these games were encouraged as exhibitions of toughness and national pride. Oklahoma once played the town team from Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. Town teams were common in early football. They were made up of local athletes, former college players, and working men who played the sport seriously. Oklahoma won 33-0. For a growing program, games like this help establish regional dominance and gave players live game experience when formal college opponents weren't available. These town teams faded as college football became more regulated, but early on they were part of the sports ecosystem. Georgia played Locust Grove Institute, a prep school in Georgia. Prep schools frequently played colleges during this time. Many college programs were still small, and the talent gap wasn't as dramatic as it would become later. Georgia won 101-0 though in a blowout physical game. This was the kind of score that was not normal in 1910, when forward passing was limited and field position mattered more than speed or scheme. Alabama's strange opponent was the 2nd Ambulance Company of Ohio, another military unit. Alabama won 7-0. One touchdown was often enough to decide games at this era. Equipment was basic, substitutions were rare, and fatigue played a major role. Military teams brought structure and physicality, which made these games more competitive, even against established college programs. Texas Tech once played Notre Dame's B team. In 1932, Tech beat a B team 39-0. Intra-squad games counted as official contests in some seasons, especially during scheduling shortages. These games allowed coaches to evaluate depth players in live conditions. They also kept programs active when travel budgets or available opponents were limited. It feels absurd now, but it wasn't unusual at the time. Miami played the Jacksonville Naval Air Station during World War II. Miami lost the game 14-0. World War II disrupted college football dramatically. Many players enlisted, rosters shrank, and military bases fielded stronger teams made up of older servicemen. These games weren't just competition, they were morale boosters and community events during wartime. The score reflects how evenly matched these teams could be under unusual circumstances. Oregon played a team listed simply as Pearl Harbor. This was a military team stationed in Hawaii, long before the name carried its later historical meaning. I'm pretty sure, honestly, I couldn't find much about them at all. Oregon won. Touring teams often played military squads while traveling, combining sports with cultural exchange and public entertainment. These games helped spread football beyond the mainland and strengthen ties between colleges and military communities. Ole Miss once played Memphis High School. Ole Miss won 34-0. High school teams occasionally played colleges during the early 1900s. At the time, the age and physical gap between high school seniors and college freshmen was smaller than it is today. This kind of matchup disappeared as high school and college football became more clearly separated. Tulane played the Havana Athletic Club from Cuba. The game ended with Havana winning 11-0. Athletic clubs were popular internationally and often toured to play American colleges. Travel alone made this matchup remarkable. Teams crossed borders and oceans at a time where travel was slow and demanding. Games like this show how international the sport's roots briefly were before becoming more domestically focused. James Madison University once played the Shepherd freshman team. JMU lost 6-0. Even into the 1970s, some programs scheduled freshmen or reserve teams to fill out seasons. Freshman squads were separate from varsity teams at many schools, and games like this provided developmental experience. The low score reflects defensive football and conservative play, common in these types of matchups. Every game in this video comes from a time when college football had fewer rules. Teams played whoever was available, whether that meant soldiers, students, towns, or teams from another country. These matchups look strange now because the sport has grown so rigid and organized. Early on, flexibility is what allowed it to survive and expand. Without games like this, college football wouldn't have developed into what it is today. If you want more deep dives into the strange, forgotten history of the sport, subscribe to 6 Past 6 Sports.